This video is regarding impossible sculptures. These sculptures can be found in museums around the world. Some of the pictures I took in New York, Brooklyn Museum. Some at Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. And some are taken from internet. About the ability of silica to petrify life form, including humans that drink or eat the solution based on silica. This is information from 1876, around that time, 1879, when a girl, 16 years old, just married with a geologist, does something, drink some sort of silica base substance and get petrified. This video came on January 3 or 4, 2024 as new information, but it was available 100 something years ago.
No, they said, wow, some of these have water in. Let's smack that sucker open and see if there's any water in it.
So they found the girl got married with an old guy that had a collection of stones. One of the stones was few of the stones were round stones, and inside they have some sort of liquid. They were inquiring if this liquid was water.
All right, so here's what happened. The fatal draught. Now, at once, it was proposed to break the large one open. Several ineffectual attempts, bang, 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 were made by them with a geological hammer always present. They called to their aid a colored man, a servant on the place, who was requested to break open the rock, as they called it. He readily consented, being willing to thus render his first service to his new mistress, the new bride of the mansion. Now, a pitcher being placed underneath the boulder, so they got a nice pitcher under it. They take the boulder, they put it in there, and he gives it a whack. So they put the boulder, as the man held it, one sturdy blow of the stalwart arm cracked it. Pops open. All the fluid ran into the pitcher, scarcely losing a drop. So they got it all, basically. There being half a pint of it in this pitcher, half a pint. Right? A few additional blows opened the boulder, presenting large, fine, transparent crystals of quartz. Quartz is SiO2, silicon dioxide. Silicon is the key here. Silica is what we're dealing with. Now, these were much admired in these really quartz-looking things, and other friends were called from the parlor to look at the novelty. Wow, we got a whole bunch of crystals in there. The bride, without ever giving it a thought, conceived the notion of drinking the water from the boulder. She poured most of it into a glass, a tumbler, near filling the tumbler, and lifting it to her lips, she drank first to the health of her husband, then to that of the unmarried friends, and then, wishing them shortly to be happy brides like herself, she drained the whole glass. She drank the whole thing, which was a full tumbler. Now, all being done so quickly that no one had time to interfere or think that any consequence might fall. So nobody even said, don't drink it. She's done. All right, now listen to this. This is amazing. Rigid in death. Now, at first, it was thought that no harm was done. And it was considered a fine joke, and much merriment was made. They're all laughing, having a good time. But in a few minutes, the youthful bride complained of excessive pain in her stomach, and she began to realize the rashness of her actions. A messenger was sent in haste for her husband, and myself, Mr. Howler's office being near my own. We received the message almost simultaneously, so they came to get him real quick. Oh, she's sick, hurry up. We rapidly drove together in my buggy to his house. Now, this is 1874, I think. When we arrived, she was dead. All right? It was only 15 minutes having elapsed from the time of taking the fatal drink to the time of her death, extinction of her life. They were just laying her out on our arrival. So they got there and they're just laying her out. She was dead. To my surprise, I found that she had grown in that short period so rigid as to render it difficult to straighten her limbs. She was apparently distorted a little bit, and they're trying to make her nice and straight. They couldn't hardly do it. She was already rigid in 15 minutes. Now, in the course of 3/4 of an hour, so 45 minutes total, her entire body became as hard and inflexible as bone. Her entire body. Now, I pass over the grief and consternation of the husband and the family as something too sacred for remark, so he's not going to talk about that. He's confining himself exclusively to the scientific facts. Now, this was very, very well documented. I was stunned. It was plain something akin to the ossification had taken place. All right? Ossification is boniness. On more minute examination and inquiry, I found that the dissolved silica she had taken into her stomach had been absorbed and transmitted by cryophytic apparatus and blood vessels. So that's just actually through the interstitium, throughout the system, and that her whole body was petrified. Her whole body was a petrification. Solid. No way. This gets even worse and worse and worse. I can't hardly believe it, but it sounds very, very legitimate now. The case being so singular and so sudden, the husband and the bride's family consented to a partial post-mortem examination. They want to see, wow, how could this possibly happen? This is instantly. Other medical men coming to my assistance, we found it impossible to cut through any portion with our scalpels. So they normally take the scalpel, they cut it in there. And Dr. Ferguson broke his scalpel in the first attempt. We were able only to break through the chest with a hatchet, finding extreme difficulty in entering the thoracic cavity, the contents being all solidified. The heart was found as firm and as solid as stone, resembling a piece of cornelian as to both color and consistency. Entering the abdominal cavity only by means of repeated blows of the hatchet, we found the contents of the stomach, the food, the bile, the liver, and other neighboring organisms solidified. The food, the bile, the liver, all the organs solidified. It is needless to say, we found it impossible to remove anything except in fractured pieces. They had to keep hitting it with a hatchet. The arteries and veins were perfectly rigid, the blood itself being changed to stone. And the blood it changes right into stone. The red blood stays pretty fluidy, though. It rehydrates quickly. Now we go into changed to stone. All right, so they're trying to keep examining things. So here's what happened. He says, having satisfied ourselves of the stony character of the entire body, so it's just turned to stone, and its contents, It was delivered to the family and interred. Some suspicions having been aroused that there might have been poison in the pitcher which held the silica solution. All the witnesses have been sworn and have testified under oath, apparently, that there was no poison. Now, my first object was to secure the remains of the solution of silica left in that pitcher, there being about an ounce left, which I carefully put into a vial, corking closely. Portions of this have been variously tested, the result each time showing simply a very strong solution of silica in pure water. The few drops which had been left in the tumbler exposed to evaporation became in short time a hard, clear concrete resembling flint or rather transparent quartz, yielding sparks on being struck against steel. Here's what happens. When that ball had that hole in the center of it, it filled up with the water, but the water was almost saturated with silica. But it has no oxygen. So it's a silica with no oxygen. You have to have oxygen to make SiO2. It's right now silica in a little bit of a hydrated state. Somehow it's a fluid silica. And then apparently a little bit of oxygen was getting in there, making these crystals start to grow inside. Because when they break them open, there's still silica in the fluids form, but there's then these crystals form because somehow the oxygen got inside. But once you break it open, she took it out, she drank it, turned her into a stone. He took it and put it in the vial, thinking he could preserve it in the liquid form, and you can't. It's already been exposed to oxygen. Turns into stone as well, but a clear stone. All right, so that's the case turning into quartz. All right, so it goes on, and again, this is from the article. These are the words from the article. Now it says the cause of petrification. The pathology in this case, while it is very striking, is very plain. Although I differ with my conferees in regard to the final or ultimate cause, it is well known as a geological fact that petrification are due to the infiltration, which is nucleophilic infiltration, of siliceous earth or lime into the interstitial space. This is right now, interstitial spaces of the substance undergoing the process. That's the petrification. They knew this back then. Apparently they knew about petrification. Let's read this again, because this is just, they knew that these things could petrify. It wasn't even a big deal. The case is very simple, very plain. All right? It is well known as a geological fact, well known in geology, that petrification of creatures apparently are due to infiltration, which is a nucleophilic substitution of siliceous earth, which is a silicon stuff, which is the biomineralizer, or lime. Now, there's limestone, and there's this other stone. Yeah, I have to agree with this. And it goes into the interstitial spaces. They just say they just discovered interstitial. It's amazing. Of the substance undergoing the process. So they knew that things could be petrified. They understood this. And up until just a few years ago, they rejected the fact that anything could be petrified geologically. And it's a well-known fact. They understood it. It's well known also as a physiological fact that various substances, usually medicinal agents, when taken into the stomach, are rapidly conveyed to every portion of the human body. That's through this interstitium, the fluid-filled highway. It moves to every portion of the human body. That's why she was completely 100% petrified. You take all this stuff up into your intestines very quickly. And once it gets in the intestine, into the interstitial highway, it's everywhere. So, again, it's also very well known as a physiological fact. Various substances, usually medicinal agents, when taken into the stomach, are rapidly conveyed to every portion of the human body, and that must be what the silica does too. Some instances in the space of 2 minutes to the whole body. In this instance, the flint of quartz, which is the calcareous earth, was held in solution and being swallowed was rapidly conveyed everywhere throughout the body, filling the interstitial spaces, interstitium.
So in the tap water, a lot of time we find some white stuff. The question is that silica? To eliminate that, you boil and condense water. So that means that silica will stay in the boiling container, and you drink the water without that silica in it. What happens during a lifetime? There is so much silica in the tap water, in the water that a person normally drinks, that is the equivalent of the volume of a human being. So it is a good idea to use distilled water when you drink, because the silica in the water actually makes the internal organs more stiff, and the stiffer the body, the more it ages. So one lesson to take from this story is to drink distilled water. This part of the video is about a petrified heart that Mood Fossil University, the person that has this YouTube channel, found, and he explains how these stones, this stone look like a heart with aorta, arteries, and so on. So let's listen to him.
To her. Now, it's been completely transitioned. Now, this one was also, and I cut it, but you see it? It's the same stuff. And this is all transitioned into silicon. All right, SiO2, it was everywhere. And it filled all the cavities. Wherever there was cavities or wherever it could take over, it did. Like even this lung here. This is a lung from I don't know what. But it's a little small lung. Now, they have cavities in the back, and that just filled in with silicates. Now, they have to be in the right area to fill in with the silicates. I have other lungs that just emptied out. There's a lung here, hold on. There's one right there, it just emptied out. That's a lung, just like this was a lung. All right, this one didn't empty out. This one actually filled up this hole with silicates, and the rest just turned to stone because it didn't evacuate. Now, why this completely dissolved everything out of it? It must have been next to some acids or salts or something like that. And this, I don't know. There's a lot to learn here, so it's nothing is solved completely. And these are the transition colors. All right. right, so you see all those different colors? That's what's in blood. All of those metals are in your blood. That's what your blood is made out of. Basically, it's made out of metals. There's metals in plasma. And I can show you those metals in a heart that has become an opal heart. And there it is right there. Isn't that spectacular? Isn't that spectacular? Everywhere where you see all these different color changes, that means whatever that tissue was, whatever it was made out of, the chemistry of it wanted to attach to some specific transition metal to become stable. That's why it's all these different colors. Every one of those is a different transition metal. So you see down here all these different little colors? That was the bottom, that heart was laying this way. And I know that because these are heavier than the plasma. The plasma side here, see it? That was up, and they cut straight down the middle of it. This would have been laying that way. And again, these are from the Great Flood. Now this is from the Yoa region in Australia, and they call them Yoa nuts. And they're little organs that have been invaded, and they've turned into spectacular opals. And I just happen to know what this is. I don't even know if anybody recognized it was a heart. I don't see how you could miss it, but anyway, that's what it is. And that's why these different colors are specific to different tissues. Different little, very, very, very nuanced colors, because these tissues are extremely varied. There's all kinds of different tissue in your body that is all right next to each other, working in conjunction with each other to do the job of life. This is just spectacular. Spectacular. What the human body is, and any creature. I mean, just any creature. From the biggest to the smallest. And when I talk about biggest, how about that? Here they are working down here. We as mud fossil people know 100% for certainty this is some kind of biology. And this, I believe, up at the top here is basically like almost like your skin. Really just about that thick of skin. And then you get down into your muscly sort of stuff. It's down in here, just below the skin. And then this, I don't know what the hell's going on here, whether these are all interstitium balls or what. I have no idea. But I'm looking at this here, that black layer. That's a black layer. It's not just black looking there for nothing. That whole layer is black. And all out of these cavities is something's dumping out, where it looks like vein blood to me. This one, I don't know. I would say this one would be an artery, but I don't know. This looks black. Black is usually, I associate it to veins. Now you got another layer here, which is rusty color. I associate that to arteries. But look at that. And that's down in Pennsylvania. This stuff is, it's up over the top. Look, this is right up close. What's coming out? I think this is an artery, because I'm seeing red here. I'm seeing, I don't know if you are, I'm seeing this reddish look. But this is black. That's black as it gets. So I got to say, this is an arterial, I mean a vein, or a layer of vein blood. Okay, let me just leave you with this. I'm going to just scan through half a dozen stone balls, because they come all different styles. This is like the eggshell type. And they can be hollow inside, as I will show you. I'm sure we're going to have some other ones that are. These are just ones that are, as they get eroded away off of the cliffs, they show up on the seashores. These ones here are eroding out of another. This is nothing more than skin. This is another one they're eroding out of skin. This is kaolin clays, bentonite clay. It's all skin. Clay is skin, basically. Now, these are stone balls that dried out quicker than other ones. When they fracture like this, they were up on a higher elevation and dried out quicker than ones that are lower. The lower ones stayed completely, perfectly round, very perfect. See, these dried out fairly quickly too. That's why they fractured. When they dry out quick, they fracture. This, that was in some kind of chemistry. You saw the transition metals. I don't know what it was, but it turned it green. And that's one of these shelled ones. And again, inside, some of them are totally hollow, like this one here. It's hollow. And they were everywhere. And they are everywhere around the world. But nobody's ever talked about them because they don't know what to say. Geologists avoid them because they have nothing to say about them. That one there dried out earlier. It's up on a hillside. And then the stuff eroded away and left the stalk. Because they all have a stalk going to these balls. Those balls aren't just laying there for no reason. There's always a stalk attached to them, which locks them in position. They're anchors. They're anchors in bodies. All right, there's one right there. You see the top fall off. But they are anchors in bodies. There's straps going to them to hold so that you can pull against them. There's some kids playing in some broken ones. Look, they're all over the beach. They're all eroding out of this here because they're just gigantic. The creatures were absolutely enormous back then. I think I showed you this one. No, I think I showed you all of those.